David Spark, producer for the CISO series. I am here with two good friends, Tim and Paul, the founders of Remediant, a privileged access management solution. And their story of how Remediant was started is a pretty standard classic founder story in that they saw a problem in the market and they wanted to come up with a new solution. So walk me through it.
Yeah, so I spent a number of years at Genentech and left to become an independent security consultant, where I was really helping large enterprises deal with attacks targeting intellectual property from nation-state actors. And that was just an amazing journey. I had a ton of experience and understood the problems in the space, but really it was attackers executing the same playbook over and over.
And what was that playbook?
Getting into the network, getting your foothold in place, and then compromising some level of admin credential to move laterally around the network.
Getting that admin was through some pretty common tactics we know, like phishing attacks, things like that. So often not a, quote, sophisticated attack, yes?
Yeah, and in fact, we see phishing attacks all the time, the use of Mimikatz in the Windows world.
The way it was being solved was how? At that time?
So everyone has been trying to approach this problem using password vaults, which means protecting the credentials for admin accounts. But the reality is there's so many accounts and it's really hard to manage from the entire environment. So we wanted to come up with a very different perspective. On one side you have lots of administrators with 24/7 access. We've been talking about principles of least privilege and zero standing privilege. And so what we wanted to do is actually create a solution that covered every system in the environment and made it really easy for IT admins to adopt.
Okay, I'm going to throw this to you, Paul. So there are other privileged access management players in the marketplace. You're not the special snowflake you wanted to say you were initially, but actually in a sense that you guys are, because you do have a couple of unique identifiers that makes your solution quite unique. And what is that?
The first one is really about visibility and discovering where all the privileged accounts exist. This has been a huge problem since the invention of privileged access.
Right, and people had no clue what the size of this problem was. With the lack of visibility, they just don't understand the problem.
That's right. You would often look at risk registers that CISOs had generated, and they wouldn't mention privileged accounts at all on them. It was simply because they didn't have the tools to be able to even discover how big of a problem it was.
Providing the visibility is the step to, oh my God, I now know I have a problem. How do I solve this thing? So that this becomes the easy way of realizing, oh, you really do need a PAM solution, yes?
Yeah. Well, it's also understanding what the current state of their environment is and what kind of risk they're taking.
Right, exactly.
Whether they solve with a PAM solution or other approaches, or either can be valid, but we wanted to at least give them the tools to discover what kind of a situation they were in. The second part was really about giving the tools to solve that problem. And this is where the idea of zero standing privilege and just-in-time access come in.
So walk me through what that means.
So zero standing privilege is really just the very basic idea that no account should have privilege access until it needs it. So zero standing privilege, meaning that zero accounts have any sort of standing or perpetual or persistent access rights, and instead those rights are granted on a just-in-time basis, meaning that access rights are only granted to accounts according to the principle of least privilege for the time that they need it on the system or systems that they need those rights, and only for the duration of time that they need those rights.
So how significantly are you reducing the problem now?
So we actually make the bold claim that we'll stop lateral movement through the use of administrative credentials. And that's because we're focused on authorization. And so if you start with zero authorization across everything and make it completely dynamic, then you're not dealing with the persistent admin problem. And even if a credential is compromised, you can't use that to log on to any system on the network.
Yeah, I'm going to go back to a question that I had asked you earlier, and that has to do with what has changed most drastically in the market. I mean, you guys have been around for 5 years. You had a plan at the beginning. What is the biggest change you've seen in the marketplace over this 5 years?
It's really about changing the default way we've been approaching privileged access management, right? So we really wanted to come with a brand new philosophy of, hey, password vaults have their place, but it doesn't solve all of the problems in privileged access. So let's focus on authorization, access. Let's make it completely dynamic. Let's make sure the administrators that we intend to have are the ones that are actually out there. And so it's been a really great journey. So far we're seeing just the industry analysts shift their thinking. They're now talking about just in time. They're talking about zero standing privilege, everything that we kind of sought out to do.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Paul. Thank you, Tim. And for more on Remediant, obviously go to remediant.com.